Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, a serial technology entrepreneur, a guy who's launched 30 companies through his career, failed at 20 of those, but scaled 10 of those to success. And I turned that roller coaster of a ride into my book. It's called Fail Hard, Win Big. And this is where I teach people how to turn failure into your biggest competitive advantage and how custom software played a defining role in every win. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatified Technology. We are a US-based software engineering firm based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Our niche is that we have a blend of US and Latin America developers. We help existing engineering teams scale. Today, I am joined by Corey Ercanbrack, who has been a longtime engineer leader, a multi-time CTO, and now is the CPTO at Vasion. Trust me, we're going to have some fun here. Corey, welcome.
Thanks, Steve. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate you inviting me on the podcast and looking forward to our discussion.
Awesome. If you would, Corey, take a few minutes and walk our listeners through the journey of your career. And you know, you got to be as exciting as me of 30 companies, 20 failures, 10 wins. I know that's quite the roller coaster, but tell us your journey.
Yeah, I can, I've had a really remarkable journey, actually. When I graduated from college, I started for Intel Corporation, and actually it was based in Utah. They just had acquired a company called Land Systems out of Novell. So this really dates me, puts me way back. This was in the early 90s. And I started growing up at Intel. Inside of Intel, I held all kinds of positions until I got to a point that I actually went to work for a manager who I didn't think was doing a great job. And I thought, man, I could lead just as well as them. And that's what kind of triggered me into leadership. And since then, I kind of shifted gears and went into leadership. But I stayed with Intel for about 8 years, all the way through the dot-com bursts. These were great times to be at Intel, stock splitting every 8 months, huge growth, awesome experience. We were building system security service management software inside of Intel. The dot-com burst, and Intel's like, well, we're going to go back to our chips. We're going to divest. And so they spun us out into a company called Landesk System that's now grown into Avanti. And I spent another 10 years in that space and grew to be the vice president or CTO of Avanti before I left in 2015, growing an engineering team about 250 worldwide through acquisitions. We were bought and sold 4 times in that period, spun out. And we actually bought probably 5 or 6 different investments to bring together system security service management. So a lot of acquisition, a lot of leadership, a lot of fun through that.
You sure learn a lot through those acquisitions and the integrations. That's packing a lot of good experience in.
Yeah. And like to your point, we probably did 7 or 8 acquisitions, and probably 4 or 5 of them were really successful. The others just kind of fizzled, because it's
That's
a hard
how it
thing
goes.
to bring technology. In fact, just a quick example of one, and this was when I was part of Intel, I acquired some technology, a team out of Canada, and we brought it in, some cool technology that's going to work well with us. But we decided that the Canadian office wasn't great. We needed to shut it down. I ended up convincing one engineer to move from Canada into Utah. And it wasn't only about 9 months before we're like, yeah, we don't want this tech. We threw it all out. So it's also all about the people, about integrating all those people, bringing all that technology and the people together and putting it into a vision and a strategy that really means something. Otherwise, it's just not successful, so.
Definitely agree.
Well, post Landesk, I actually really wanted to get into webs. I moved from a 250-person team down to an 8-person team, and we built a web solution for helping small businesses get online. From there, I moved into InsideSales for just a period, and this was when they were hypergrowth. I don't know if you're familiar with these guys. They're a company out of Utah who sold sales platform. In 9 months, I was only there 9 months. In 9 months, I hired 65 people, grew a big team. So you learn a ton through hiring skilled technical people, putting a team together, trying to get them rolling in the same direction. I ultimately left because I went to a little company that's now called Vasion. Originally it's called PrinterLogic in St. George. And the way that I got hired on there is a colleague I had worked with at Landesk actually was working there and referred me. And they're like, look, the founder here, he's got 3 engineers. He's a system administrator. He doesn't know anything about engineering. And we need to bring somebody in who can scale this because we have a bunch of tech debt. We have a lot of sales and marketing, and we got lots of feature requests. We need somebody to come grow the the platform, the team, the structure, come join us. And for me, I was like, wow, what an opportunity after having spent, 20, 22 years in the industry being a tech leader to go and start from scratch, essentially, like bringing in technology. Like when I showed up, there was 3 engineers, no source code repository, no PDLC, no process, no nothing. And I was able to kind of build that. And that to me was super exciting. And that's how I kind of landed where I did.
That's fun. That is fun. Now, so tell us about Vasion, what the company does. You've been there almost 4 years now?
No, so Vasion, I've been here 10 years now because we were PrinterLogic. We rebranded the company to Vasion 4 years ago because we are extending our platform beyond print into automation. So PrinterLogic didn't make sense. So we moved it to Vasion. And I've been here 10 years, started out with 3 engineers. It's been 4 years since we decided to bring product and engineering together, and we put that under me as the Chief Product Technology Officer here at Vasion. The team's now grown to well over 150 developers and product people and DevOps organization, a little bit of SDET in there. And we're building now, gone from a single perpetual on-prem solution to a multi-product platform delivered 100% out of SaaS, out of the cloud to our customers. And it's been such a fun experience over the last 10 years, just really growing a remarkable kind of world-class engineering team.
So talk to us about the combination of the product teams and the technology teams. I think, over the past year or two, the CPTO role is growing, which I know I'm a big fan of. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to find smart individuals like yourself that truly have the product and engineering focus. Give your thoughts on that and the good, bad, and the ugly of having it combined. And
so I've been being a perpetual engineering leader. You sit and work a lot with product throughout the years. And I've had some great peers that I've worked with product. But I've always been very much leaning on okay, tell me why we're building it, who we building it for, what we're building. And so for me, it just become a little bit natural to really lean into kind of the product side as well. And when the opportunity arose here to put it together, I kind of raised my hand with our CEO and said, hey, why don't you let me give that a shot? He's like, okay, let's try it out. That was 4 years ago. I will say that one of the hardest things, to your point, that it's really hard to find a unique individual who does both. I have to intentionally work at thinking like a product person over an engineer. And it's like a hard mental game that you have to play because as an engineer, you want to tell the truth. And it's not like as a product guy, you're telling a lie, but as a product guy, you're wanting to tell what the customer really needs to hear to buy the solution, which sometimes isn't necessarily the absolute truth of exactly how it works underneath, right? Like there's positioning that has to happen. And so you're constantly in a battle in your mind about, okay, how do I say this that person will understand what we're doing that will also be relevant when they actually try to use it and it all comes together as one? That's the and then really have to get at.
Then explaining what that was to the engineering team, It's like 2 different languages, 2 different.
Totally. And it's been it's a hard thing for me. And, I think that there's a time and a place to bring those 2 together. I think that at different sizes and different places in companies, there becomes an opportunity that they need to be separate. They need to come together. But I've really enjoyed kind of just dipping my hat. I find though, Steve, to be honest, that I probably spend 75% of my time thinking about product and 25% thinking about engineering, which is sometimes hard because I love being in the engineering stuff too. I've always been a hands-on engineering leader. I want to be in the product. I want to be using it. I want to be driving it. And I find myself oftentimes in the product side, a little bit more in PowerPoint, a little bit more in explaining stuff. And it's just an intentional thing you have to go after, right? But it's hard.
So how do you make sure your engineering team is cutting edge, integrating the right AI tools and processes and workflows when you got to spend 75% of your time on product?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you've got to have some good, strong leaders on the engineering side underneath you. And I have a phenomenal VP of engineering and a couple super strong directors that can actually help drive some of that. But I still take a lot of time translating. And it's cool because I understand deeply on the product. So I can translate that into that engineering speak and help drive to ensure that AI is happening on the engineering
Well, and
perspective.
when we're brought into companies to help troubleshoot challenges and why their roadmaps are not moving forward, it's exactly what you just said. Like the product team and the engineering team just had a block, didn't speak the same language, weren't communicating. The product team would say they have a full roadmap, and the engineering team would say, really? Because we haven't seen it. We see the little parts you parse out to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, that's great. And like I said, I'm a big fan. I think, once again, the biggest challenge is finding people like yourself that can wear both those hats, because that's a lot of juggling.
It's a lot of work, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun to be kind of in both those positions and to be able to influence not just the technology and the stack that you're using, but also the product direction that you're going. And there's a lot of challenges, a lot of good, a lot of bad that comes with it. You're the guy who, if you miss the market and you don't deliver it on time, you get dinged by both, right?
One throat to choke or to blame for everything.
I know, exactly, which brings a lot of stress. When I started 4 years, I had a lot of hair. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not.
Tell us about some current projects you're working on. Some fun stuff.
Oh yeah, so we're doing a lot of fun stuff here. Our core solutions is a print automation solution where we help customers eliminate infrastructure and really take control of all the paper processes. And what we're actively working on right now is we're starting to introduce AI agents into our platform to help assist, and from a natural language perspective, to really make our product simpler to use, simpler to deploy, simpler to manage, as well as we're also introducing a bunch of different agents to help customers try to eliminate why they're printing in the first place, to actually potentially someday get to that true paperless office that people have been promising for 20, 30 years. But actually, like, how to digitize. So how to, from a natural language, say, hey, I need to convert this piece of form, this paper form, into an e-form, upload that into our AI agent. It recognizes it, builds it into our form builder, creates it, now puts it as a e-form capabilities, dynamically building workflows that, from a natural language, that allow us to actually process not just data from maybe I need to print it, but at the same time, before I print, I need to actually redact certain confidential information, or I need to actually store that data over. So employing that AI in real places that actually help customers, not just like simple, cool chatbot stuff. That's what we're about.
So it sounds like you're really focused on pushing that data to good use before a print occurs.
Exactly. Or even determining, like, hey, the last 5 times Steve printed this out is because he signed it. And we noticed that, because we also have scanning solution, we noticed he scanned the same paper back in. Why not just flip that to an e-signature in our signature solution and have him use it that way? So actually even eliminating, or dynamically, with AI context aware, understanding why something's getting print and saying, well, maybe don't print that. Or, print that now. And if you need it again in the future, we'll save it over here for you, type of thing. So all of those pieces.
So Corey, what's your, obviously generative AI, LLMs, agentic AI have taken over the conversation the past 24 months. We're seeing great advancements. And I think the goal for everybody is that it's drastically changing the product or user interface side for users to make things easier for them to get the info they want using the AI capabilities to customize that experience for them. What's your take on that, from the product and engineering side, and how that might change UIs of the future?
Yeah, I think there's a big play in the multimodal capabilities of a lot of the language models that are coming on board. I think that, I don't know your experience with natural language. Sometimes I find myself spending an enormous amount of time trying to get the right prompt down to get AI to do it, where I could have just clicked through and done something in a UI, in a multi-step process, almost as quick, right? So I think for me, like, as more and more people start to adopt to voice, which I've been using a lot of voice feed into AI lately, I think that's a big movement, because it's a lot quicker to talk than it is to type in most cases, right? So I think that's one big thing. As far as like general AI overhauls, like eventually I think, AI does a massive change within the industry. I think that the combination of voice or drawing or pictures, I think, becomes a lot more of the interface than a traditional interface. I think that for a long time to come, there's got to be some level of, in the right places, a human in the loop where it's an approved process. Like I know in our agents, since we're making mass changes based off of somebody's prompt across our platform, we actually, validate and say, here's all the changes we're going to make. Are you good with that or not? Approve or not? Then we go ahead and do it. So I think there's some of that's going to click into it. We're actually, part of our solution right now is to try and figure out how we build our platform to shift it from IT professionals being the users of it to their users, those end users, to actually use our solution. Because what we're finding is the end users know their processes better than IT. And it slows down the process when the end user has to talk to the IT guy to say, hey, here's my process, go build it out in software. So we're actually trying to make our software easy enough that an end user can just automate their own digital and physical processes. And to do that, it requires a lot of, consumer-based design aspects, which is greatly simplifying that solution. And I think AI plays a part in that, but I think there's still a lot of simplification that can happen in traditional UI that just needs to be done, right? It's no longer this old mainframe spreadsheet look and feel.
Yes. So you said when you started with your company, there were a couple engineers. Now you have over 150 on product and engineering, DevOps, testing. Tell me your work model. Are you how you manage that? Where your teams are located?
Yeah, so we've grown the team. I mentioned when I left Landesk years ago, I had 250 engineers worldwide, and I had 100 of those engineers offshore in Beijing, China. And I learned something from that a long time ago, that it was really difficult when you have offshore teams. Like the model on paper always adds up. It makes a lot of sense, but actually, I know, but actually to get work done, it became really difficult because we would walk out of the office at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and the Beijing team would walk in the office at 7 o'clock at night. And then they would leave before we got there. So there was never any overlap. So our model right now is we're agile shop. We follow Scrum to some level. We have some new ways of doing PDLC that we're modeling out. Our structure, though, is that when I got here, I set it up in two ways. Number one is I knew being in St. George, Utah, the tech depth, I wasn't going to find everybody here. So I set it up for remote first. Like we do a lot of remote first stuff. We have engineers all over. We have a pretty big concentrate here, big concentrate up in northern Utah. We have an office up there as well. But like all stand-ups, every meeting has Zoom associated with it. Like every meeting set up to be remote so that teams can come together anywhere they're at and be a part of a group that's happening. I also said, look, I know at some point we're going to have to also do some offshore stuff. And I think this aligns, Steve, a little bit with your company. What I did is I chose to actually expand into South America. So specifically kind of Mexico region. So I have a lot of like Guatemala engineers, some from Mexico City, some in Cancun, like scattered kind of all over Mexico down there in those areas. And they're great because they're an hour time difference. So it's like 7-8 hour overlap. I can take them and I can put them on a team in conjunction with an engineer out of Canada, 3 engineers here in Utah, create a team that's remote focused and just let them run. And so that's kind of the base pod model that we're doing. And it's become really successful in how we build. And each of those teams can just build different features.
So. Having 30 companies building software for all, I started my current company, Sonatified Technology. I saw the tipping point start to occur 2016, 2017. Custom software with cloud and mobile capabilities were getting too complex to not have real-time collaboration with your engineering team throughout the process. Yeah. And having worked with many offshore companies, I once set up my own operations in the Philippines. I've worked in India. I've worked in China. And you have great people there, but you're lucky if you're getting an hour or two overlap. And you're also dealing with different cultures, which, one of the challenges that always bothered me was the yes culture of, hey, do you have any questions? Are you good? No, we're good. We're good. Awesome. You go to bed, you go home, spend time with your family, you go to bed, you wake up in the morning and nothing's done. And you're like, oh my gosh. So I started following the software talent of Latin America as it really kind of hit the map in 2016. And that's what led to my current company. And that same time zone closer culture. I've specific to Latin America prior to the pandemic, remote wasn't a thing, and most had to live near major cities where it was typically a 1 to 3 hour commute each way to work. And so same time zone, great attitude, smart engineers. And that's great that your team has been able to utilize that. I started this company because I have a little more hair than you, but I was pulling my hair out from it.
Yeah, like you, when I had so many offshores in China, I tried everything. I tried. Well, hey, we could code 24/7, right? I could buddy them up. Somebody here in the States, that person could code all day long, and then spend just an hour before they should, and pass it off to somebody who could code all night long. Come back in. That failed big time because all of a sudden that non-understanding about all that domain expertise would fall off. So what ended up happening is the Utah engineer would come in the morning and recode what the China engineer did at night. It just become this non-productive thing. I've tried master chef model. I tried remote model. And ultimately we found some success in very specific things that we needed to get done, just to hand the whole process off to China and have them do it right. Just trust that it got done and follow up on it. So it is a hard thing. I love the model we have right now with the overlap, the integration of the teams. It's the thing that works. And it's the thing that helps really get our velocity to a point that it justifies dealing with the offshore or nearshore.
And there's many great tech uses for offshore, whether it's monitoring, whether it's more maintenance work. But when you're that velocity on roadmap, that collaboration, I've always seen a key. It's kind of interesting, but in 2020, we used to have to educate people on what nearshore engineers were, as it was a newer concept. And then it started to become more mainstream. And I have seen a lot of companies over the years fire the CTO because they weren't happy, and bring in the guy who says they could cut engineering costs in half and have 2 to 3 times the amount of engineers as offshore. And I see that fail 99 out of 100 times. But I know the CFOs and the non-technical CEOs like that story of, oh my gosh, we can cut our costs significantly, have more people, better velocity. And I have found it takes the engineering leaders that have those scars of why it's so challenging to do that now to truly appreciate it and be able to defend it, because nearshore has grown to be more expensive than offshore, still cheaper than US.
Yeah. That, like, for me, like I mentioned, we set it up as remote originally, and this was pre-COVID. This was back in 2015, 2016. We set it up remote because ultimately I was just saying I'm going to have to hire the best engineers I can find anywhere. I just got to make them productive. And that's the same when we started going offshore or nearshore. We said, look, who's the best engineers? Let's go find them and bring them onto the team. And I think out of the 150, I think I got 20 down in Mexico right now. They're all integrated fully into the team, working, some of the best engineers I've worked with out of there.
Awesome. So as a tech leader here getting ready to close out 2025, what's the biggest challenges you're facing?
Yeah. So I think I know we mentioned AI is taking over all the conversations, right? I think that as we close out 25 and go in 26, we've undergone a massive kind of transformation within the engineering and product team. And we're in the middle of that, like upskilling. Like, we have a lot of engineers who are learning about the new technologies. We have boot camp training set up. We've sent off experts to come back and train. I've worked with local university to actually sponsor a machine learning class that I've got a number of my engineers paying for them to go to that. Like, it's all about upskilling to the point that, as we get into 2026 and 2026 starts playing out, you actually start adding, digital workers into the mix with the engineering group to do more. And so there's just a lot of work and training to still help that transformation happen as we roll out at 25 and even into the first part of 26, so that as we, play into the future, you truly have, these unique teams that can deliver on a lot of the hype conversation that's happening with AI right now.
And it can be even challenging to train because it's evolving so quickly.
Yeah.
It definitely takes a lot to keep up. I have the privilege of daily doing a podcast with smart people like you, which is how I'm able to stay up to speed. But man, there's so much out there. It's definitely a challenge. And it is changing so rapidly that it's definitely keeping people on their toes, to say the least.
Yeah, it's a constant. I can't people, I mean, we've been talking about, doing things at the speed of AI. I think it's becoming this thing, like how fast is AI moving and how's it changing? And it's one thing to learn and kind of keep up with the new trends. It's another thing to try and cut through what's real, what's not, which is you almost spend as much time trying to understand that. Like, well, how big is that context window? Could I put a whole code base in there? Could I not? Like, how much should I invest in training an agent on expertise on my code base or not code base? Like, there's just so much that's still some hype and not a lot of promise yet that is hard to, even if you learn about it, to kind of cut through, okay, how does that apply where? And it's very intentional. It has to be intentional because ultimately I think that companies who aren't in the middle of it are eventually going to fall behind. Like, I just think that's what's going to happen.
I mean, there's two choices here. You got to jump on the AI bandwagon or you're out.
Right.
Now, Corey, how do you deal with non-technical executives, board members, investors that don't understand AI and will say, hey, my buddy's company, they saved 50% of costs across all of tech by implementing AI. Why haven't we done that? How do you handle expectations with completely non-technical but high-level stakeholders?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I don't think I'm a master at that yet, Steve. I can tell you some approaches I've done. From an exact level perspective, we do exact offsites a couple times a year. And during those offsites, I'm always given a session to lead on what are technology trends and where's market competitive trends, right? And for the last couple of times, I just coming off the heels of one that we just did. I always take all those trends and research, like I do a lot of it on AI, but then I always take that and I try and transpose it into actually producing something that AI created so I could show like how far things have evolved. So in June this year, I used Google to actually build a podcast of a couple people speaking and talking back and forth to show like, hey, this was all generated AI. In the one I just did a week ago, I actually went through like 7 or 8 different video platforms and took my transcript that was generated by AI and fed it into creating a panel-based discussion on video. And I think showing that, not just talking about it, but
actually, you don't have to teach me how to do this.
But actually showing them, for them to realize like, oh, it's not quite as far as we thought it was, because it's just like the videos aren't great. You tell they're AI generated. And I'm like, look, I went through all the best of the best to do this. And this is so I think one thing showing like, here's where we're really at on AI and keeping your business partners educated on that, I think is super valuable. And I found that that's really useful. I also found like for board members, because I have this, like I'll have board people texting me on a Saturday saying, hey, did you just see so-and-so? They just doing this and this and this, right? I think what you have to establish is what is your baseline? Because some companies say I'm 5x faster, but what does that mean? I have no idea. Like, I don't even know who measured what X faster. So we've been for a long time, for the lack of best thing tracking is we track kind of story points per dev per day per developer type of a thing, and we're starting to incorporate now within our story pointing capabilities, like at the end of getting something done saying, okay, Mr. Engineer, how many points did you do, the human, and how many points did you have AI do, the AI person, and really start tracking that down at the core work level so that you can actually bubble that up. But ultimately what you're going to see is roadmap stuff starting to shift to the left, right? It's like coming in, like you're building things a little faster, a little deeper. And the other complication that we have is, the way you take things to market, like we're a SaaS cloud first company, but we also deliver on-prem. And we deliver a now version and a more stable version. And so adding all that overhead, like showing like how much that is, but yet that's not reducing the amount of work you're getting done. It's still very nebulous in my mind. Like people are trying to figure out, but what we're doing is we're going to attack it at the work level and really be able to show saying, look, this is how much we're getting AI to do the work for us. And we want that to grow over time, not to replace engineers, because I don't think that's what it's about. I really think that finally with AI, you could deploy what they call the master chef models. I don't know if you're what's his name? Sorry, I totally forgot his name, but he's a big DevOps guy. The master chef model is all about saying, like, I'm a master chef and I've got a bunch of people and I'm just passing work off to get done and I'm the main architect in delivering it. I think that's where it's shifting. Like, we're moving from developers to creators and we're leveraging digital workforce to do that. So that whole process, and for us, there's not one be all, other all, but just to show how quickly things are coming to market, how we're delivering, how we're winning in areas is really key for stakeholders and executives.
There's definitely a lot of exaggerated claims out there, to say the least. And every credible study, MIT did a big one last quarter. Every major consultancy's been doing it. The consensus is 95% of generative AI projects are producing zero or negative ROI. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think such a shiny obstacle that everybody's trying to apply AI as the solution. And reality is it probably doesn't need to be AI at that moment. So I think it's essentially, in a term of engineering, it's over-engineered. Like, I'm using this heavy AI to do this thing when I could have just automated it with traditional modes, and I probably would have got more out of it. But I have a mandate from on high to use AI to become more AI. So I'm just using it, and I'm not using it even appropriately or for the right reasons. I think that's a problem. I think that there's still a constant conversation about how much context. Like, if you think about it, Steve, most of the context for large language model, any public context have already been trained into the model. So what's left is all the private context of companies on how decisions, what the background is, and putting that context into a training AI, I think is starting. Like, I think in 2026, you're going to see more and more of that starting to happen. Like, agents who actually can take business context and apply it to tools to get things done. And I think we haven't necessarily been to that step yet. And a lot of people haven't invested, because I don't think that's an overnight thing. I think that's going to take months or a year project to do that. And I think that's where it's going to come to real. Like, I think people are just saying, like, hey, there's AI. I can get some use out of it because I asked it to give me some transcript on trends and it did a good job. That's cool, but that's not replacing work, right? And that's ultimately what AI is eventually going to do. When's always a question, but that's what it's going to do.
It's definitely exciting times, to say the least. Corey, thank you so much for getting uncensored with us today. Appreciate you sharing your background. You have rare experience of building multiple large engineering organizations. The fact that you're tackling with a vengeance the product and the CTO side is amazing. Before we wrap, what's your no BS advice for tech leaders out there who are trying to build, scale, or even just survive in these interesting and changing times?
Yeah, for me, I think it's all about making it work for you. Like, there's so much noise, so many different methodologies, so many different ways to go about building. There's not one right or wrong way. You've got to determine and figure out what works for you and your business and your team. And then you got to just stay true to it and evolve on it. Like, I think that's what you have to do. And I think it's only going to get worse because, how do I even know this is you, the real Steve I'm talking to? It could be just like an avatar. Like, there's
an AI.
so many, like, you've got to establish your truth. You got to drive to it. You've got to just say, this is how we're going to do it here. And how are we competing? We'll let the results and outcomes play out. That's what I'd say.
Great advice. Corey, thank you again. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you like the show, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you didn't like it, well, we'll just send it to your competitors. Probably the edge thing they're looking for. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.